It's time for another edition of the Improbability Engines After Show, and today Joe and I are talking about science fiction movies. So, Joe, what are some of your favorite science fiction movies?
Well, if I was to pick one that comes to mind as being a movie that affected me the most, I'd have to go with 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick's film from the late 60s that was a technological marvel, foreshadowed a lot of the technology we have today. The murderous computer HAL, which is a word jumble away from IBM. It's really an interesting movie. I think it's a strange movie, but it's one that's been culturally significant. That's the first one I'd go with. What do you got?
Well, it's a difficult choice. For quite a while, and this is what I'm going to go with for my first one, The Matrix. It is a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the series is very uneven.
Yes.
The first one is far and away the best.
Yeah.
The second one is horrible.
Yeah, it's not great.
And maybe the third one is a little better than the second one.
The Matrix, for me as a kid, that to me was the greatest example of movie marketing I've ever seen. Because for a year before the movie came out, before I ever heard anything about the movie, it was everywhere you'd look, there would be, what is the Matrix? What is the Matrix? What is the Matrix.com? What is the Matrix? And it became this question of, what is the Matrix? I mean, like, most of my generation were like, what is this thing, man? What are we talking about here? And then when you go and see the first movie, and it's visually stunning, but it's also, the story is deep and all the things you want out of science fiction. It's character-driven, but it changes perspectives, and it does all these things that you want it to do. Fantastic movie. Just really, really powerful one. But I really liked it.
Another one that I would like to mention, it's my favorite of all of the Star Trek movies, is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. I was a huge Star Trek fan and was so disappointed in the first movie, Star Trek The Motion Picture, because it did not capture the personality of the characters. And the second one did. They gave the actors freedom to do the things that they did in the TV show, and Wrath of Khan is just an outstanding movie and honestly, the best Star Trek movie of all time.
I think The Voyage Home was better.
No, I loved Voyage Home.
I thought that was, it made Star Trek approachable for non-Trek fans, which is important, I think. You're right about Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan's fantastic. I mean, the best part about Wrath of Khan is the use and the quotes, the Shakespearean quotes that run through it. I think that... Especially
with Christopher Plummer's... No, wait a minute. I maybe think that may be Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country is a good one, too.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer's character in Undiscovered Country with the quote there at the end.
The best of those movies, the thing that you can say about science fiction, it's easily dismissed a lot of times as you know, robot punk fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best of what science fiction is can be found whenever you can drill to the core of the story and understand the interactions of the people in situations. Now, the situations are just far enough away from reality to allow immersion, but they're not so far from reality that you can't glean an insight into what the characters are thinking or feeling. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And I think those do that fairly well. The next one on my list is got to be The Martian. This one it's not like an uber speculative fantasy. This is actually, you know, pretty close to reality. Talking about more of an introspection on what mankind does and why they do it in the name of exploration. You know, it stars Matt Damon. He goes to Mars as part of an Ares mission. He is injured when they're emergency aborting their mission and trying to get up into orbit, but he does not die, although they think he does. And it goes through all the things that he has to do and how his thinking has to be in order to survive and continue and just make it to the next day and extend that chance of him being rescued. It to me tells the story of some of the greatest aspects of humanity. Amongst those great aspects of humanity would be the idea that in times of crisis we can choose to come together and do great things.
It reminds me of Robinson Crusoe on Mars, which you may never have seen, but if you were a kid in the 60s, you loved Robinson Crusoe on Mars.
Fair enough.
Now,
fair enough.
The quote I was talking about earlier was from Undiscovered Country. It's Christopher Plummer. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war.
One of the great lines from Shakespeare, but also used very well there.
Now, another movie, though, that I want to mention, and I loved both Cocoon and Cocoon 2.
Right.
Or actually, it's Cocoon the Return. But great movies, especially Cocoon. And the older I get, the more I like it.
What's really great about Cocoon is the acting ensemble they brought together. Fantastic actors, really funny, Don Amici, and you've got, Wilford Brimley, and you've got, these are really great actors from their era, and they're going on this fun journey to enjoying life. And that's such a cool thing. It's just a really great story.
You mentioned Don Amici. Have you ever heard The Bickersons?
Yes, I have.
Oh,
hilarious. Don Amici, for those who don't know, his early career was in radio. And he actually, believe it or not, started out, I believe, as an announcer, as a narrator and announcer on the Gracie Allen and
George
Burns. So the Burns and Allen show. He was an announcer on the Burns and Allen show. And was really good. Great voice, for a radio announcer. Got his chance, became an actor, did wonderful things, and was fantastic. Great actor, one of the best of all time. Okay, I've got to bring up two chains of movies here.
Okay.
And the first one you're not going to like, I don't think. Star Wars.
Not science fiction.
It is science fiction.
It's fantasy.
They have spaceships. It's science fiction. They've got laser guns.
It's a fairy tale. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Okay, a long time ago, sure, it's fantasy. In a galaxy far, far away, it's not Krull. This is Star Wars. Okay, so I think honestly, as much as people, there are people who absolutely love Star Wars. And for those people, plug your ears, because I'm going to say some things that might not be good for you. Give me 2 minutes, and then we'll talk. So go ahead and plug your ears. Are they good and plugged? Okay, they need to quit making Star Wars movies.
Agreed.
Mainly because the first 3 movies, while limited and technically challenged, I think were brilliant. Every movie they've done since then, while some of them have been good and some of them have been bad, I don't think that they've done anything but take away from the legacy of the original Star Wars. And that's only because the original Star Wars series was so good. It was a cultural defining moment. And this isn't Jar Jar. I'm not talking about Jar Jar Binks here, okay? I'm not talking about, the pod racing. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm just saying you've gone to the well too many times. It's thinning out. It's getting harder and harder for me to be okay with it. And these are characters that I loved as a kid, and now I'm not. You're diminishing it. You're not being additive. You're being,
I agree, and I don't like the way they skip around in the timeline when they're turning the movies out. My sense of order is offended by that. You know, they're a bunch of nerf herders.
Well, you know, who's scruffy looking? So now that we've got the Star Wars fans back, the other series that I have to make mention of, Back to the Future.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Glad you mentioned that.
Yeah? Good or bad?
Oh, it's good.
Okay, good. No, Back to the Future, to me, well acted, well written, Zemeckis and Spielberg at their best. It made you want an unreliable car that was not as fast and probably couldn't get up to 88 miles an hour in real production. You know, everybody I know was like, oh man, a DeLorean, that's so cool. Never mind that it was, you know, kind of thrown together and not really a great car, but fantastic iconography.
Well, one of my favorite science fiction TV series was Firefly, so I have to mention the movie Serenity.
Absolutely.
Serenity is a great movie, and I looked so forward to seeing that, and for the most part was very pleased with it until they got to the very end and killed some of my favorite characters.
You know, this is one of those that Firefly is the one open wound in all sci-fi nerds' person. In their heart, they've got an open wound that is Firefly. I mean, it just is. Fox canceled them. There's no reason to. It was a great show, and I really loved it. It was this, you know, just wonderful. It's a Western based in space, and it's, you know, there's so much going on, and the characters are great. Nathan Fillion's fantastic. And then they come out with the movie in an attempt to pacify those people who are up in arms. And what it did was irritate people more because, oh, now this is supposed to be the end. This is the end. And it's just really just a sad state of affairs. A great series and a great movie that came out of it as well.
2 trilogies.
Yep.
Actually, one has turned into more than a trilogy.
Oh, no.
But anyway, now that I think about it, they both have. But anyway, the first 2 in each of these, or the first one in each of these, just an awesome film. Alien, just an incredible film, the first one. And The Terminator, the very first one. Both of those are far and away the best films in the series.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know, you get to these Star Wars people, plug your ears again. They've done with those 2 what they did with Star Wars. And what Star Wars has done what Planet of the Apes did before it. They've gone too far. They just keep making these movies, and you watch them, you go, this is just not as good.
Although, you know, Prometheus, one of the more recent entries in the Alien series, was good, and I'm actually sort of excited about Alien Covenant.
You know, we'll see. The problem is, you can make an argument that, and be okay with, Alien needed 1 sequel, and that was it.
Yes.
Because you want to talk about, I mean, oh my gosh, that was so good. Alien 2, some of the best movies. Forget genre. They're powerful, frightening, quotable, cultural.
Now, the first one, Alien, the story is better than in Aliens, which is the second one. The acting is better. There's more nuance. It is in many ways a better film. But the second one is a better action movie.
Right.
And it has quotes that stay in your mind forever.
Absolutely.
You know? What the fuck are we going to do now? Game over. It's game over, man. And then the little girl. They come out at night, mostly.
You know, to me...
and when Bill Paxton's character says, I think her name is Gonzalez, when he says to to her that she looks like a man, and her response.
You know, it's weird because those movies to me were, I think you're seeing what the pros of having limitations are. Okay, so when you look at the Star Wars trilogy, the first three movies, you're limited by the technological ability and by your budget.
Yeah.
And it's a great movie because it's character driven.
Right.
Alien, you could tell they were like, look, we're going to give you some money, but not a whole lot. You know what I mean? We're not going to give you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what they came up with was a taut, well-acted, powerful, frightening movie. Now, in the second one, and with the trilogy, with all the movies that have come out in Star Wars since then, it's one of those like, look, you got a blank check. Do whatever you want to with it. And so you get over-the-top special effects. You get amazing, cinematography, but you get a little less story, a little less person, a little less character.
When I was a kid, there were all kinds of black and white science fiction movies that generally dealt with radiation is going to cause bugs to be very large and they will kill us.
Right.
The best of those was a movie called
Be very
Them.
careful.
Them was awesome, but The Incredible Shrinking Man just
I think you're missing
a chilling film.
The icon of the technology gone bad, Godzilla.
Well, I hated the Godzilla movies, but the original War of the Worlds
yes, that was good.
is awesome, and it is so much better than the horrible remake that they did.
The Time Machine, the original Time Machine, fantastically done. Special effects were really as cheap as you could possibly do them, but they tell a very poignant story about a man who is a stranger in his own time, who creates this time machine, and just fantastic. I mean, really, really a fantastic movie. One of those that anytime it's on, I'll watch it.
And I mentioned this one only because the book was so good. A Wrinkle in Time. It's my favorite, maybe my favorite novel of all time. And the movie is very good because of its source material.
And you get the funny thing about science fiction is you can go from true sci-fi to speculative fiction and stuff like that. I like.
Then there's dystopia.
Right.
Which we're living in.
Right. Oh God. Children of Men.
Yeah.
Fantastic movie. A future where man can no longer procreate and create, children. And it's just a powerful reflection upon what is important and what isn't important, and how we get it all confused, and how that works. I mean, the biggest thing that it tells us is that, the biggest thing is you need to worry about the future and not live like there is no future, because this is what it looks like if there is no future, and it's this hopeless and bleak and just terrible.
There's a book called The White Plague. You talk about hopeless and bleak. This is back when terrorists were Christians. They were Catholics in Northern Ireland. And in this book, the NRA comes up with I guess it's a biological weapon that kills women, and virtually every woman in the world is killed.
Oh God, what a horrible, horrible thought.
Yeah, I mean that's just, but you were talking about Children of Men, and it made me. What was the movie about dragons?
Oh, that was Matthew McConaughey's in that, and Christian Bale. I'm gonna look it up.
Reign of Fire?
Reign of Fire. Which was a good movie, but not a great movie. Not one of my favorites. But
agreed.
But an interesting premise.
And for some reason, Children of Men brought that to mind.
So when you talk about dystopia, and we talk about the books, the source material, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, one of the most devastating books I've ever read in my entire life.
Someday we're going to have to do a segment on books.
They came out with a movie with Viggo Mortensen. It was a good movie. The book is it is detrimental. It will physically affect you when you read it. It's so well written. It's Cormac McCarthy, so you know what you're getting with him. But the story of a father and son trying to survive, and the father trying to teach the son everything he needs to know, and that balance between hope and fear, and how you teach that and how you go forward. It's just a fantastic story.
You mentioned the Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah.
And the most recent series of that, I think, has been very good. But
it's all right.
But nothing stacks up to the original, and the shock when you see the Statue of Liberty.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, you get to some of those, and you get to those speculative fiction type things where you go through and say, this is what could happen. This is something that could happen. And I don't think anybody in the '60s actually thought, well, we're going to create a dominant race of apes that will enslave mankind.
But they did think we might blow the whole world up.
Right. And the biggest part of that is that for all of our technology, we're still limited by our own judgment. And I think nowadays that bears repeating. I mean, we're limited to our own judgment, our own decisions, and positive or negative, we just kind of deal with that as we go.
Anything else?
Nope. Lots of good sci-fi movies. Hit me up at @RacerJoeD on Twitter. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm completely messed up. And if you're a big Star Wars fan and I've made you mad, send all your stuff to Ed Marlowe.
And that brings to a close this edition of the Improbability Engine.
The incredible shrinking man.
You are getting smaller. There's no medical precedent for what's happening to you. I simply know that you're getting smaller.
I want you to stop thinking about us, our marriage. Some awful things might happen.
As long as you've got this wedding ring on, you've got me.
This is Orson Welles speaking. I have 45 seconds to tell you about something I think you'll remember the longest day you live. It's about a man named Scott Carey. A few months ago, he was 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 190 pounds. Today, he's 2 inches tall, and you can hold him in the palm of your hand. Now he lives in a world where he must fight for his life, a world where a friendly house cat is a predatory monster.
Incredible because it's almost beyond imagining. Incredible because every hour he gets smaller and smaller. Incredible because every moment the terror mounts.